The silence between us. Amid the solitude of a quiet summer, Lizalapi finds solace in a popular online game that introduces her to two contrasting companions, the playful and mischievous Mike Slow, and the gentle and thoughtful Chooks Kit. What begins as a simple distraction from her loneliness gradually evolves into a journey of unexpected emotions as Lizalapi becomes entangled in a delicate web of camaraderie, affection, and self-discovery. As the trio's bond deepens, the stark differences between Mike Slow's spirited teasing and Chooks Kit's attentive kindness leave Lizalapi conflicted, caught between annoyance and admiration. Their virtual adventures are filled with laughter and unspoken feelings, but reality looms on the horizon with the high school entrance exams threatening to part their paths. When the exams conclude, the three make plans to meet in person for the first time, stepping out from behind the screens that have connected them for so long. As Lizalapi waits anxiously in a small cafe, her heart races with questions. Will their real-world meeting reflect the joy of their online friendship, or will it unravel the fragile threads of connection they've built? The Silence Between Us is a tender coming-of-age story about friendship, love, and the bittersweet beauty of transitions both in life and in the quiet moments between dusk and dawn. During an ordinary summer vacation, Lizalapi felt lonely due to her parents' busyness. To pass the time, she started playing a popular online game. This game introduced her to friends from different places, including a boy named Michael Slow and his friend Chooks Kit. Initially, Lizalapi just wanted to find some entertainment, but unexpectedly, she gradually developed deep feelings for these two boys. Michael Slow was a lively boy who always found opportunities in the game to tease Lizalapi, causing her to lose in competitions. Whenever Lizalapi got angry because of Michael Slow's pranks, she couldn't deny that she was also attracted to his humor and playfulness. In contrast, Chooks Kit's elegance and gentlemanly demeanor made Lizalapi unconsciously develop a fondness for him. He was always very attentive, guiding her in the game, and unlike Michael Slow, he never intentionally teased her. In the game, the three often teamed up, sharing laughter and tears, but Lizalapi's feelings for Chooks Kit left her feeling conflicted. As time passed, their interactions in the game became more frequent, and Lizalapi's relationship with Chooks Kit gradually grew closer, while her dislike for Michael Slow deepened. She couldn't understand why Michael Slow always liked to embarrass her, and why she always ended up being the worst when they played together. Despite this, Lizalapi still couldn't help but look forward to every game session, knowing that no matter what, Chooks Kit would be there with her. As middle school life drew to a close, the entrance exams were approaching. Lizalapi knew that this exam would determine their futures. So, she devoted herself to preparing but secretly looked forward to meeting Michael Slow and Chooks Kit for the first time. After the exams, the three agreed to meet at a cafe. At that moment, Lizalapi felt both nervous and excited. She had no idea what it would be like to meet these two online friends. On the day the exams ended, Lizalapi waited at the designated cafe, her heart filled with anticipation and anxiety. She imagined what the meeting would be like. Would it be as joyful as in the game, or would she feel disappointed because of reality? Her thoughts were interrupted the moment Michael Slow and Chooks Kit walked into the cafe, causing her heart to race uncontrollably. That day, sunlight poured into the cafe through the windows, gently landing on the table. Liza sat nervously at a window seat, constantly checking the time, secretly wondering what Mike and Chooks would be like. This was their first meeting in real life, although she had played games with them online for several years, the reality of meeting them filled her with both anticipation and anxiety. When Mike's figure appeared at the door, Liza almost didn't recognize him. The boy who always teased her in the game, making it impossible for her to play comfortably, was even taller than she had imagined, with a hint of mischief and confidence in his eyes. He walked over to Liza, a slight smile on his lips, seemingly unfazed by the meeting. It was Liza, however, who felt a bit flustered upon seeing Mike like this. "Hey, what's up? Surprised to see me?" Mike asked with a smile. Liza shyly smiled back, a little. She hadn't expected Mike to be so handsome in real life, quite different from the image she had constructed in her mind online. They chatted for a while, and the atmosphere gradually became more natural. They talked about funny moments in the game, reminiscing about those teasing scenarios that had driven Liza to the brink, with Mike still using a teasing tone that made her smile involuntarily. Liza realized that although Mike sometimes annoyed her, in reality, he was someone hard to dislike. However, the whole meeting was missing a key person: Chooks. Liza had been most looking forward to seeing him because he was the gentle friend who always quietly helped her in the game, providing her with comfort. When she asked Mike why Chooks hadn't come, his expression turned a bit regretful. "Chooks had some family issues and couldn't make it today," Mike explained. "He really wanted to come, but something came up at the last minute, so he'll have to meet another day." Hearing this, Liza felt a bit disappointed, but she understood that everyone had their own difficulties. She could only silently accept this fact. After their meeting, they said goodbye, and Liza inexplicably felt a sense of emptiness. It seemed like something was missing from the day, and this feeling began to spread in her heart with the approaching summer vacation. The summer vacation arrived as expected, and Liza's life seemed like it should become relaxed and enjoyable. But this summer vacation turned out to be a significant turning point for her. Her parents' arguments became more frequent, and finally, on a dreary afternoon, they announced to her that they were getting a divorce. The news hit her like a heavy blow, disrupting all her plans and expectations. She was forced to move, leaving behind her familiar environment and friends, relocating to another unfamiliar community. On the day of the move, Liza dragged her heavy luggage, feeling utterly miserable. Everything in the new community felt strange and unsettling. She missed her past life, filled with a sense of loss and helplessness. However, while walking in the community, a familiar figure approached from a distance, causing her heart to skip a beat. She stopped in surprise. The familiar figure was Mike. "What are you doing here?" Liza blurted out, unable to believe her eyes. Mike was also taken aback for a moment, then broke into a surprised smile. "Liza? What are you doing here?" It turned out that fate had brought them together again. Liza had moved to a neighborhood near Mike, and this boy, whom she both disliked and somewhat missed, seemed to be entering her life once more. "I moved, and I didn't expect to run into you," Liza explained with a wry smile, her complex emotions hard to articulate. Mike laughed and patted her shoulder. "Since we're neighbors now, we should see each other often." This unexpected reunion added a touch of unknown anticipation to Liza's upcoming school life. As summer vacation was coming to an end and a new school life was about to begin, she suddenly felt a bit of comfort in her heart. At least in this unfamiliar community, she still had a familiar person to accompany her. For Liza, high school life was a brand new beginning. At first, she was full of anticipation, curious about the campus life she was about to enter. Her personality had always been cheerful, she was straightforward and disliked beating around the bush. When she first entered high school, Liza quickly made some friends in her class, all of whom were drawn to her frankness and vivacity. She adapted well to the new environment, maintaining an open attitude towards everything, whether expressing her opinions in class or joking with her classmates, she handled it all with grace. However, things did not go as smoothly as she had imagined. As time passed, Liza gradually realized that she had become the focus of the teacher's attention. The homeroom teacher particularly liked her personality and often praised her for her enthusiasm and participation in class. Not only that, but on several occasions, the teacher also took the time to chat with her after class, encouraging her to put more effort into her studies, saying she was a student with potential who would surely have a bright future. Originally, Liza should have felt happy about the teacher's goodwill, but this attention unknowingly led her into a predicament. Her classmates began to develop strange feelings towards her. She hadn't done anything wrong, yet she found herself inexplicably isolated. Why is the teacher always so nice to her? This was what her classmates often whispered behind her back. Gradually, Liza could sense that the way her classmates looked at her had changed, it had become cold, even tinged with hostility. When she spoke up in class, no one was willing to engage with her anymore. After class, her classmates no longer initiated conversations with her. The friends who had once surrounded her seemed to have vanished overnight. Once, Liza tried to join a group of classmates discussing their homework, but as soon as she approached, they deliberately lowered their voices and pretended not to see her. This indifference and disregard sent chills through her heart. She had never experienced such a situation before. In the past, she could easily blend into any group, but now, she felt like an outsider. She quickly understood that the teacher's goodwill and attention had not benefited her, instead, it had made her a target for attack. Those neglected classmates displayed strong jealousy and hostility towards her, as if every move she made was subject to their criticism and magnification. This invisible pressure made Liza begin to loathe school. She no longer spoke up voluntarily and stopped participating in class activities. Every day upon entering the school gate, she just wanted to quickly hide in her seat, avoiding any interaction with others. She became quiet, closed off, a stark contrast to the vibrant girl she had once been. Liza's low spirits directly affected her studies. She lost interest in her textbooks, rushed through her homework, and her test scores plummeted. Once praised by her teachers, she now found herself at the bottom of the class rankings. Every time report cards were handed out, Liza dared not look. She knew her position in class no longer mattered, as her classmates had long stopped caring about her. This sense of isolation and frustration led Liza to develop a deep aversion to school life. She hated school, hated those indifferent gazes, and even hated herself. Every time she walked onto campus, an indescribable pressure surged within her, a pressure that quietly pushed her towards the brink of collapse over time. During this painful period, Liza's academic situation worsened. She could no longer concentrate, even daydreaming in class. She knew she should try harder, should change everything, but no matter how she tried, she couldn't shake off that feeling of powerlessness. School had become a suffocating place for her, each day tormenting her patience and will. As time passed, Liz's status in class had completely plummeted to the bottom. Her name always appeared at the end of the rankings, becoming a topic of conversation among teachers and classmates during breaks. This made her increasingly reluctant to go to school. Classes had become meaningless to her. Her once cheerful personality seemed to be eroded by this indifference, turning dull and fragile. During this stressful time, the only comfort for Liza was her occasional contact with Mike. Whenever Mike asked about her recent situation, she would always downplay it, not wanting him to know what kind of difficulties she was experiencing. She didn't want Mike to see her weak side, so she always tried to maintain a nonchalant demeanor. However, Mike was not so easily deceived by her facade. Although Liza never mentioned her problems at school, he could always sense the exhaustion and pressure hidden behind her smile whenever they met. Mike had noticed that Liza's emotions had been off lately. Although she always tried to act as if nothing was wrong, he could still feel the heaviness and frustration within her. One day after school, he mustered the courage to say to Liza, "Are you free this weekend? Let's go out and relax a bit." Liza was somewhat surprised. She hadn't expected Mike to take the initiative to invite her out. "Where to?" I know a cat cafe. I've heard the environment is nice, and there are many cute cats. I remember you like cats, so you should enjoy it there," Mike said with a smile. Upon hearing cat cafe, Liza felt a slight sense of relief, but she still hesitated. She hadn't been happy in class lately, and the feeling of isolation made her resistant to interacting with others. She pondered whether to accept Mike's invitation. Seeing her delay in responding, Mike suggested, "If you have a good friend from class, they can come too. I don't mind getting to know more friends." Mike didn't know about Liza's experiences in class, he simply wanted to lift her spirits. Hearing the phrase "good friend from class," Liza felt a slight heaviness in her heart, and a hint of sadness flashed in her eyes. The only person she could talk to in class was Zhonglian. "Then I'll ask her if she's free," Liza nodded gently, agreeing to Mike's invitation. The weekend soon arrived, and Mike arrived early at the cat cafe to wait. The cafe was filled with the aroma of coffee, sunlight streamed in through the large windows, and several lazy cats lounged on the floor, enjoying the lazy afternoon. Liza and Zhonglian arrived shortly after. Liza appeared somewhat fatigued, but when she saw the adorable cats, a hint of relaxed smile appeared on her face. Zhonglian, on the other hand, was excited, taking photos with her phone. The three of them found a corner to sit down, ordered some simple drinks and snacks, and began to enjoy this peaceful afternoon. Liza didn't order a drink, only a piece of cake, while Mike and Zhonglian each ordered coffee. Mike noticed that Liza had little appetite and asked, "Do you want to share this cup of tea with me? I have some extra." Liza looked up at him, her eyes showing a hint of hesitation, but she eventually nodded. "Is that okay? With your straw?" Mike smiled, "Of course, but you have to leave some for me." Liza smiled slightly, took his cup, and in that moment, the pressure in her heart seemed to lighten a bit. After playing at the cat cafe for a while, the three decided to watch a movie. Mike chose a newly released romantic film, although the story was sweet, the ending was quite sad. After the movie ended, Liz's mood seemed even lower. She silently lowered her head, and Mike and Zhang Lian didn't say much either, seemingly lost in their own thoughts. The three of them took the bus back, and Zhang Lian got off early, leaving Mike to accompany Liza. When they reached the bus stop, Mike looked at her and softly said, "If you have anything you want to say, feel free to tell me anytime." Liza nodded but didn't speak. When the bus arrived, the two got on one after the other. The bus was quite empty, but they still sat together. The scenery outside gradually receded as the bus drove on, the sunset's afterglow casting a warm light on their faces, making everything seem so quiet. But the heaviness in Liza's heart made it hard for her to breathe. Mike glanced at her and gently asked, "Feeling any better?" Liza shook her head lightly and said softly, "Actually, there are some things I haven't told you." Mike frowned, knowing she was hiding something, but he didn't want to push her. He patiently waited for her to continue. Liza took a deep breath, seemingly making a significant decision. "Recently, I've been having a really hard time at school." Her voice trembled, and her hands tightly gripped the straps of her backpack, as if trying to hold on to something. Mike's heart sank, but he remained calm. "What happened? Is someone bullying you in class?" Liza lowered her head, her eyes filled with grievance. "It's not direct bullying, it's because the teacher treats me a bit better, and my classmates started to ostracize me. They think I don't deserve that kind of attention. Gradually, no one talks to me, and sometimes they even say hurtful things behind my back." As she spoke, her voice grew softer, tears gradually welling up, blurring her vision. "I've tried not to care, but it's too hard, really hard." Her voice choked, and the tears finally flowed uncontrollably. Seeing her like this, Mike felt a pang in his heart. He knew Liza had always been strong, always pretending to be indifferent on the surface, but now, the pressure had finally caused her to break down. He didn't say anything, he simply reached out and gently pulled her shoulder, allowing her to lean against him. Liza didn't resist, resting her head on Mike's shoulder, her shoulder trembling slightly as tears flowed quietly. "It's okay," Mike whispered, his tone gentle yet firm, "you still have me. No matter what happens, I will be with you." Liza didn't respond, she just buried her face deeper, her tears silently soaking Mike's clothes. In this moment of silence, she felt a sense of warmth and safety. The grievances and pressures in her heart seemed to find a moment of release in this simple act of leaning against him. The scenery outside continued to rush by, but between the two of them, there seemed to be an unspoken understanding. Mike sat silently with Liza for a while, feeling her slightly trembling body. Until the bus slowly approached the stop, he gently reminded her, "We're almost there, let me walk you home." Liza lifted her head, hurriedly wiping away her tears, and nodded. Mike stood up, guiding her off the bus. The two walked slowly along the sunlit path, the street sparsely populated, the sunset casting long shadows of the two. Liza's emotions seemed not to have fully settled, her gaze remained somewhat vacant, and she kept her head down, speaking little. Mike knew she needed quiet at this moment, so he didn't say much, just walked silently beside her, maintaining a bit of distance, but that warm support never wavered. Soon, they arrived in front of Liz's house. Mike stopped and softly asked, "Do you feel any better today? If you're still feeling down, you can always find me." Liza looked up, her gaze softening a bit, and nodded, "Thank you, Mike. I'll think about it." Mike smiled, "Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Sometimes, talking about unhappy things can lighten your heart a bit." Standing at the door, Liza seemed to consider whether to say something more, but in the end, she gently opened the door and returned home. Mike watched her back until the door closed, then turned to leave. On his way back, he felt a bit heavy-hearted. Hearing Liza's words today made him realize that the pressure she was under was more than he had imagined, and it began to worry him about her situation. Just as he was about to exit the community, his phone vibrated. He took it out and saw a message from Liza, "Thank you for accompanying me, I feel much better now." Mike looked at the message, feeling a bit relieved, and replied, "No matter when, you can always find me." Returning to school, Liza's condition gradually worsened. In addition to being isolated by her classmates, she also caught a severe cold due to the dropping temperatures, making her appear even more exhausted. That day was the exam for the first class in the afternoon. Liza struggled to finish the test paper, silently reminding herself that she had to persevere, but felt an overwhelming fatigue after the exam ended. After the lunch break, Liza felt a wave of dizziness but still forced herself to return to the classroom. She propped her head up with her hand, holding the test paper, trying to compare answers. However, her long hair draped over the desk led her classmates sitting behind her to mistakenly think she was lying down and slacking off. The teacher immediately instructed the students behind her to call her up, but Liza's emotions had already reached a breaking point due to the previous isolation and exclusion. She detested the touches from her classmates, especially when she was feeling unwell. Turning around with a glare, she gritted her teeth and asked, "What do you want?" Seeing this, the classmate hurriedly explained, "The teacher asked me to call you." However, this explanation did nothing to quell Liza's anger, instead, it made her feel even more wronged and helpless. With her physical discomfort compounded by her emotional agitation, a surge of anger welled up inside her. Driven by her emotions, Liza slammed her test paper down on the desk, preparing to score it. To the teacher, however, her action appeared as misplaced anger. The teacher was immediately taken aback and scolded, "What are you doing? Are you taking your anger out on your classmates? I asked him to call you, are you dissatisfied with me?" Liza quickly explained, "No, I just feel unwell, I'm not taking it out on anyone." But the teacher continued to criticize her. Liza was so frustrated that she felt like she was about to explode, yet she repeated her explanation once more. After back and forth, the teacher decided not to waste any more time and instructed Liza to wait outside. "Fine, I'm leaving," Liza retorted angrily. Her heart was filled with injustice, and in her fury, she stormed out of the classroom. Initially, she wanted to slam the door, but then she reconsidered. Facing a teacher, she ultimately extended her hand to stop the door from slamming, preventing any noise. The corridor outside was eerily quiet, with only the sound of her heartbeat echoing in her ears. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she felt herself on the verge of losing control. She didn't know how to face this uncommunicative situation, her mind filled with the laughter of her classmates and the reprimands of her teacher, leaving her feeling helpless and lonely. She began to question herself, wondering what had happened and why everyone was so indifferent to her. While waiting for the teacher to come out, Liza once again explained, "Teacher, I'm not taking it out on my classmates, I just feel unwell. I really have no other thoughts." Her tone was firm, yearning for understanding. However, the teacher's attitude began to grow impatient, coldly asking her, "Is it appropriate to speak to a teacher like this? Do you talk to your parents like this too?" Liza's heart jolted, and she replied, "I always talk like this. You and I are both human, why should I treat you with special respect? I treat everyone the same, if you don't believe me, you can ask my parents. And don't use your attitude to speak when you can't win an argument. I've explained to you several times, I'm not taking it out on anyone, you're just going in circles and using my attitude against me." Upon hearing this, the teacher's face showed surprise and anger, but Liza could no longer endure it. The anger inside her led her to unintentionally engage in a debate with the teacher. She could no longer suppress her emotions, and tears began to flow uncontrollably. Back in the classroom, she felt the strange gazes of her classmates and could no longer bear the loneliness. So, she closed her eyes, suppressing all her emotions deep inside, yet felt suffocated. Every time she wanted to cry, she swallowed her tears back, forcing herself not to be weak. This dispute made Liza feel as if her world was collapsing, and she couldn't find a shoulder to lean on. Liza's emotions reached their limit during the argument with the teacher. She held back her tears, packed her backpack, filled with resentment and despair. Her classmates cast strange glances at her, and she felt like a bird trapped in a cage, unable to escape. "I don't want to stay here anymore," she muttered to herself, a strong urge to escape surging within her. Without thinking much, she quickly gathered her things and rushed out of the classroom, heading straight for the school gate. The sunlight outside was blinding but could not illuminate the gloom in her heart. Liza's mood sank to the lowest point. She decided not to think about those depressing things anymore and just wanted to find a place to calm down. She aimlessly walked toward the park outside the community, the echoes of her classmates' laughter and the teacher's reprimands cutting through her heart like a knife. Entering the park, the surrounding noise seemed to be isolated. The leaves swayed gently in the breeze, making a rustling sound, yet it could not quell her inner anxiety. She sat on a bench, hugging her knees, lowering her head, trying hard not to let the tears fall. "Why do they treat me like this?" she spoke to herself, the scenery before her gradually blurring. Her heart was filled with grievance and helplessness, feeling out of place in this class. No matter how hard she tried, she could not gain recognition. At that moment, the laughter of a few children in the distance broke her silence. She looked up and saw a group of little kids playing joyfully, and a hint of envy rose in her heart. She remembered her childhood, when she used to play carefree in the park. Those simple joys now felt so distant. Just then, her phone vibrated. Taking it out, she saw a message from Mike. She hesitated for a moment but still opened the message. The brief text from Mike brought a slight calm to her heart. "Liza, what's wrong? I'm waiting for you, where are you?" Seeing this message, a warmth surged in her heart. Although Mike often teased her, deep down, she truly valued their friendship. She quickly replied, "I'm at the park, nothing's wrong." Mike's reply came right away, "I'll come find you." However, Liza did not see this. After replying that she was fine, she continued to gaze at the falling leaves. Not long after, Mike's figure appeared in her line of sight, his steps quick and determined, as if he was hurrying to check on her. Seeing Mike, a complex emotion surged within Liza, a mix of gratitude and heartache. "What are you doing here?" She forced a smile, but her heart remained heavy. Mike frowned, not answering her question, but sitting beside her, looking at her with concern, as if he wanted to say something but hesitated. "Did you argue with your classmates again?" he finally spoke, his voice low and gentle. Liza's heart tightened, and she lowered her head, tears flowing down uncontrollably. She said painfully, "I really don't want to go to school anymore, everyone dislikes me, even the teacher misunderstands me. I'm so tired. Today I had a dispute with the teacher in class, they must be talking bad about me behind my back. I don't know what to do about the situation with the teacher." Mike's gaze grew more concerned. He didn't rush to comfort her but quietly listened as she poured out her heart. Liza felt a bit relieved and continued, "I was already feeling unwell today, I just wanted to finish the exam, but then my classmates touched me in the classroom. They don't know my situation and keep laughing at me behind my back." She could no longer suppress her emotions, feeling increasingly wronged, and tears streamed down her face. Mike silently leaned her head against his shoulder, not saying a word, but his actions provided her with the greatest support. She felt an invisible strength, as if it could withstand all the storms. "No matter what, I will be with you," Mike finally said, his voice firm and powerful. "No matter what happens, I will support you." Liza nodded silently, feeling a warmth in her heart. It seemed that in Mike's embrace, all her unhappiness could be resolved, every moment of sadness felt like it would dissipate as long as he was there. As time passed, Liza's emotional state gradually became more unstable. Although Mike was constantly providing support and care, the isolation and exclusion from her classmates still shadowed her, deeply oppressing her spirit. She felt like a small boat swaying in a storm, at any moment ready to be swallowed. At night, Liza lay in bed, her thoughts in disarray, unable to sleep. She felt a deep sense of helplessness, tears welling up once again. To hide her pain, she locked herself in her room, trying hard not to let anyone see her vulnerable side. As time went on, these emotions intensified, and she even began to experience self-doubt and thoughts of self-harm. Once, she accidentally cut her hand at home, and upon seeing the blood flow, she suddenly felt a release, as if physical pain could mask the pain of her soul. She realized how wrong this behavior was, yet she couldn't extricate herself from it. A few days later, during a lunch break, Liza sat in the classroom, feeling heavy-hearted. She couldn't concentrate, the textbooks in front of her became blurry, and the sound of the lecture gradually faded. Watching her classmates whispering to each other, a painful sense of exclusion rose involuntarily in her heart. Her hands unconsciously clenched, her nails digging into her palms, yet it couldn't alleviate the anxiety and unease within her. Just as she wanted to escape this unpleasant emotion, she overheard her classmates' low whispers, mentioning her name. "Liza is really strange. She clearly has the teacher's care but still performs so poorly." A sentence pierced her heart like a sharp sword, making her feel even more wronged. She tried hard to suppress these negative emotions but found herself unable to escape. After school, Liza sat on the rooftop of the school, the scenery before her picturesque, yet the gloom in her heart could not dissipate. At that moment, all the grievances and pressures surged like a tide, making it hard for her to breathe. She cradled her head, letting the tears fall. By the usual time to go home, Mike had been waiting at the bus stop for a long time but still hadn't seen Liza's figure. As time passed, a sense of unease gradually rose in his heart. When he tried to call Liza's phone, he found it couldn't be connected, which made him even more anxious. What if something happened? Mike thought to himself, and then made a decision. He quickly ran towards Liza's school, wanting to find her in person. Upon arriving at the school gate, he searched around, his eyes filled with worry and anxiety. Soon, he reached the bottom of the teaching building and noticed a figure there. His heart tightened, and he hurriedly rushed in that direction. As he got closer, he realized it was Liza. She was sitting alone by the railing, her face wearing a vacant expression, seemingly gazing at the distant sky. Mike's heart jolted, filled with anger and concern. Without thinking much, he immediately pulled her away from the railing. "What are you doing?" Mike asked urgently, his voice laced with anxiety and pain. "Why haven't you gone home so late?" Liza was taken aback, a flicker of surprise crossing her eyes, but then she fell back into a low mood. She didn't know how to respond, merely lowering her head in silence, allowing tears to fall once more. Seeing her like this, Mike felt a sharp pain in his heart, growing even more distressed. "How can you just sit here like this? If something's wrong, just tell me." Mike's tone softened, yet it still carried a strong concern. He gently held Liza's hand, hoping to convey his presence in this way. Liza lifted her head, her tears blurring her vision. I really don't know what to do, everything is causing me pain." Her emotions surged like a tidal wave, uncontrollably spilling out to Mike. Mike listened silently, determined in his heart to help her through this difficult time. He held her hand tightly, as if to tell her, no matter what happens, he would be with her, never leaving. As the days went by, Mike grew increasingly worried about Liza's emotional state. He noticed that whether in class or after school, Liza's smile had become fewer and fewer, and the occasional smile that appeared seemed forced. He felt uneasy, sensing that if this continued, something would eventually go wrong. He thought to himself that he had to do something. One weekend afternoon, Mike finally made up his mind and invited Liza to take a walk in a nearby park. Under the dappled sunlight filtering through the trees, he mustered his courage and said, "Liza, I don't think this is a solution. How about we go out to have fun every holiday? No matter where we go, as long as I can watch over you and make you happy, that's enough." Liza was taken aback for a moment, then slightly lowered her head, seemingly deep in thought. A wave of warmth surged in her heart, but it was quickly suppressed by unease. She recalled her isolation at school, and her mood instantly sank. "But I'm really useless, why would I trouble you?" Mike frowned and said firmly, "You're not a trouble. I just want to be there for you. No matter how sad you are, I want you to know that I'm here by your side. If you want to change, it has to start from this moment. I want to help you find happiness, to fill our memories with more laughter instead of tears." Liza was touched by his words, feeling a warmth in her heart. She looked up and met Mike's concerned eyes, finally revealing a hint of a smile. "All right, then it's settled." With this decision made, they began planning their upcoming holiday activities. Mike continuously suggested various fun ideas, sometimes going to browse bookstores, wandering among the shelves and admiring the eye-catching covers, sometimes watching movies, especially those with touching love stories, and sometimes just simply taking a walk in the park, enjoying the sunshine and chatting about their dreams and futures. For their first date, they chose a newly opened cat cafe. Upon entering the cafe, they were greeted by colorful cats leisurely weaving between the guests. Mike smiled at Liza and said, "Look, the cats here are so cute. We can take pictures with them." Liza's mood lightened, and she couldn't help but laugh, feeling as if she had rediscovered a long-lost joy. They ordered their favorite drinks. Liza chose a rich chocolate drink, while Mike opted for a refreshing lemonade. Sipping their drinks and playing with the cats, the atmosphere between them grew increasingly harmonious, and Liza's laughter gradually increased. When she held a small cat for a photo, Mike couldn't help but joke, "You can take such beautiful pictures like this. You really are the girl I've set my sights on." As these dates became more frequent, Liza gradually let go of the burdens in her heart. She enjoyed this time with Mike, and their distance from each other subtly closed. After returning to school, Liza's mood began to improve. Although there was still a barrier among her classmates, every time she thought of the wonderful moments spent with Mike, her heart was filled with strength. Each date became a moment she looked forward to, bringing a glimmer of light into her difficult days. These days passed in happiness and anticipation, with Mike not only becoming Liza's supporter but also gradually becoming her emotional anchor. Although Liza's smiles were still few, whenever she was with Mike, there was always a long-lost sense of stability in her heart, allowing her emotions to gradually improve. Due to several holidays spent together, Mike and Liza's relationship grew increasingly close. The tacit understanding between longtime friends gradually made them realize that they both hoped to be admitted to the same university and start a new chapter in life there. This agreement became their motivation to study hard, whether facing the upcoming college entrance examination or their future academic life. In the days that followed, Mike's grades stabilized at the top of the class, and he handled his studies with considerable ease. He decided to help Liza and began to schedule fixed times each week for them to review together. This was not only a mutual aid in learning but also a process that deepened their feelings for each other. Every weekend, they would meet at Mike's house to study for the entire day. Mike would prepare study materials in advance and create practice questions for Liza. At first, Liza often received a sea of red marks on her answers, with nearly all of her paper covered in corrections, which left her feeling frustrated. Seeing her reaction, Mike couldn't help but chuckle as he gently tapped her head with his pen, his tone filled with helplessness. "What's going on with these answers? You can't do this." Liza looked woeful, yet she also found this little interaction somewhat endearing. Her attitude towards studying began to change. Mike's encouragement and teasing made her feel less pressured and gradually more engaged in her studies. As time passed, Liz's performance began to improve. She started to be able to solve the questions Mike posed independently, and occasionally she would unexpectedly provide the correct answers, which surprised Mike and made him proud of her. During this study process, Mike's mother often showed concern for them, always preparing some fruits or snacks to bring to their study desk. Seeing the two of them buried in their books, she couldn't help but tease, "You two should take a break and go out for a walk, after all, you both need to get into college. Besides, at such a young age, making friends is also very important." Her tone carried a hint of ambiguity, causing Liza and Mike to exchange amused glances. As the dream of university gradually became clearer in their hearts, the atmosphere of their studies became increasingly relaxed. Sometimes, during study breaks, Mike would chat with Liza about their future plans, sharing their interests and dreams. "What do you want to major in?" Mike casually asked during one of their breaks. "I want to study law, to help those in need and protect their rights," Liza thought for a moment, a glimmer of determination flashing in her eyes. Mike was slightly taken aback, then nodded and said, "That's great. Such a major requires keen insight and strong persuasive skills. I've always thought you would be very suited for that kind of work." He paused for a moment, then candidly added, "As for me, I want to study electrical engineering, so I can design more innovative technologies that will help with future developments." They shared their aspirations for the future, and as their studies deepened, Liza's confidence gradually grew, and her academic performance continued to rise. From her initial insecurity to her current determination, Mike's support had become her strongest backing. As the college entrance examination approached, in the final month, Mike's mother made a suggestion: let Liza move in with the Slow family. This would reduce the hassle of commuting to school, and the two could focus more on preparing for the exam. "You both have been studying intensely during this time. Living together will help you supervise each other, and the results will be even better," Mike's mother said, her eyes revealing expectations for their future. "Moreover, this way your schedules will be more flexible, and you can communicate more with each other." Upon hearing this, Liza's heart trembled slightly. She nervously thought that moving to the Slow family would mean significantly more time spent with Mike, which excited her but also made her a bit afraid. Although their relationship was already deep, she still felt a bit anxious in such an intimate environment. "What do you think?" Mike looked at her, smiling slightly, his eyes filled with encouragement. "If you feel it's inconvenient, we don't have to do it." Liza pondered for a moment and then nodded slightly, "I think this idea is great. We can study together and look out for each other." Thus, with the joint coordination of both parents, Liza began her new life at the Slow family. Mike's home was spacious, with a dedicated study room that allowed them to study quietly. Every morning, they would have breakfast together and then dive into their studies, occasionally exchanging thoughts and sharing insights. Liza and Mike's efforts became increasingly diligent. They buried themselves in their desks every day, hoping to fulfill their dream of attending the same university in this crucial exam. Faced with the heavy academic pressure, their moods began to tighten, but each other's company made this difficult time feel a bit easier. During this month, Mike's mother always prepared rich meals for them and would occasionally tease them, "You two are studying so hard that I'm a bit worried. If you get into college, don't forget about your aunt." Although her words were playful, they also revealed her expectations for their future. Liza secretly vowed to give her all in the exam, not to let anyone down. She increasingly felt that her relationship with Mike was not just that of study partners but also a spiritual support for each other. A week before the exam, however, Mike suddenly told Liza, "I won't be home today." Liza looked up, filled with confusion. "Where are you going?" "I have some things to take care of and might be back late." Mike's voice carried a hint of apology. Liza felt a bit uneasy. "Then make sure to handle it well and don't tire yourself out." She couldn't help but put down her book, concern evident in her eyes. "Don't worry, I will." Mike smiled and patted her head. "You focus on studying at home and don't get distracted." After saying that, he hurriedly left, leaving Liza alone at the desk, pondering over Mike's matters. With Mike's departure, Liza felt an inexplicable emptiness. She tried to refocus, but many anxious thoughts surfaced in her mind. On one hand, she thought about her exam. On the other hand, she couldn't help but worry about Mike's situation. What could he possibly be doing? Liza kept speculating in her heart, unable to extricate herself. Her fingers unconsciously slid over the pages of her book, but her eyes couldn't focus. Although she knew Mike was a very opinionated person, whenever he wasn't around, she felt a wave of unease, as if she had lost some kind of support. The pressure of the exam already made her feel breathless, and now worrying about Mike's matters made her mood even heavier. She recalled the past, how Mike had always been there to support her, whether it was difficulties in studying or troubles in life. Thinking of this, a warmth surged in her heart, but it was soon swallowed by unease. Should I call him to ask? Liza hesitated, then thought that doing so might seem too anxious. She took a deep breath, telling herself to focus on studying first and to wait until Mike returned. However, every time she tried to refocus, Mike's smile and his determined gaze flashed through her mind, causing her worries to resurface. A few hours later, as the light outside gradually dimmed, Liza decided to take a break. She stood up, walked to the window, and gazed at the setting sun in the west. At that moment, her heart was filled with anticipation for the future, yet she felt helpless about the current predicament. She imagined the days of entering university with Mike but couldn't help but feel anxious about where he was at that moment. Just then, her phone rang. Liza quickly picked it up and saw a message from Mike. "Sorry, I'm stuck in traffic. I'll be home soon, remember to save some food for me." Seeing this text, Liza's unease eased slightly, at least she knew Mike still cared about her. "I'll finish eating, and you take care on the road," Liza quickly replied, understanding that although they were separated by distance at that moment, their hearts remained tightly connected. She told herself to work harder, for her future and for the promise with Mike. As her thoughts returned, Liza sat back down at her desk, diligently opening her textbooks, silently reciting, "As long as I work hard, I will definitely get into my ideal university and realize my dreams with Mike." This belief helped her find her direction again and made her more invested in her studies. The next day was the college entrance examination, and they both knew this would be an important turning point in their lives, as well as a new starting point for their future together. The day of the exam finally arrived, and a tense atmosphere enveloped the entire campus. Although Liza and Mike were in different exam rooms, both felt a mix of anticipation and anxiety about the upcoming test. To ensure that Liza wouldn't go hungry, Mike woke up early to make sandwiches and even brought a bottle of milk. As they walked to the exam room together, Mike smiled slightly and handed the sandwich to Liza. "Don't forget to eat, I made this myself," he said firmly. Liza gratefully accepted the sandwich, a smile spreading across her face. "Thank you, Mike. I will definitely eat it well." Just as she was about to enter the exam room, Mike suddenly grabbed her hand, making her stop. Liza turned back in confusion and saw Mike pull out a small safety talisman from his pocket. "I got this talisman the day before the exam. I hope we both do well and get into the same university. Also, wait for me after the exam, I have something to tell you," Mike explained, his gaze steady and gentle. Liza felt a surge of emotion, gripping the talisman tightly and silently reciting the blessing in her heart. They exchanged smiles, but then Mike hurried away, worried about being late for the exam. However, once Liza entered the exam room, her classmates began to launch verbal attacks against her. Jealous of her recent rapid progress, they continuously mocked her. She heard someone deliberately say loudly, "Look, Liza can actually do so well, she really doesn't know her place." As the taunts escalated, more classmates joined in, forming a small group targeting her. One girl viciously said, "Liza is just a lowly failure, how could she possibly get into our school?" Soon, others began to laugh at her, mimicking her voice and even making disdainful snorts. These words cut like sharp blades, igniting a surge of nameless anger and unease within Liza. The anxiety in her heart made it impossible for her to focus on the exam paper. As time passed, her emotions grew heavier. Halfway through the exam, her mind was a chaotic mess, unable to recall the knowledge she had learned. The exam paper seemed increasingly out of reach, and a multitude of anxious thoughts flooded her mind. At that moment, someone from behind deliberately kicked her chair. She turned slightly to see the girl wearing a provocative smile, intentionally turning her head away, completely indifferent to her actions. At that moment, Liza felt a wave of fear and despair, filled with an indescribable sense of grievance. "You won't make me back down like this," she silently vowed in her heart, yet she couldn't break free from the shackles of her emotions. As the exam time dragged on, the mocking voices echoed in her mind, further distracting her focus. Her heart was filled with disappointment and unwillingness, yet she couldn't change the current situation. As she walked out of the exam room, the cold jeers of her classmates weighed heavily on her heart. Liza returned to Mike's house in a daze, planning to pack her things and prepare to move back home. She completely forgot about Mike's previous promises and reminders. Just as she got home, she happened to run into Mike looking for her. But Liza said nothing, silently staring at the floor, her heart filled with helplessness and despair. Mike sensed something was wrong, she had been fine before the exam, and a hint of unease rose in his heart. He hurriedly asked, "Liza, did something happen before the exam?" However, Liza remained silent, only lowering her head as if trapped in her own emotions. She then opened the door to her house, shutting Mike out. Faced with this situation, Mike felt a surge of anxiety, and the image of Zhang Lian flashed through his mind. He quickly rushed to ask Zhang Lian, only to learn about what had happened during the exam. Damn it! Mike's anger surged, filled with uncontrollable rage. He wished he could confront those classmates and stand up for Liza. He had painstakingly rescued the princess from the abyss, only to see her pushed back down so easily by those people. Back at home, Mike's thoughts drifted back to the past, recalling those seemingly ordinary moments that gradually made him realize that Liza's behavior had long revealed the hidden pain in her heart. He remembered how she often seemed distracted in class, her eyes vacant, occasionally gazing out the window as if lost in thought, always carrying a hint of sadness. Whenever the teacher asked a question, she would lower her head, too afraid to look up. That posture of fear and retreat was hidden beneath her usually cheerful exterior, unnoticed by others. There was also a time when Liza watched a movie with him. It was supposed to be a light-hearted comedy, yet he noticed she would suddenly fall silent during certain scenes, even shedding tears unconsciously. He had thought she was just moved, not realizing that behind it lay her helplessness and anxiety about life. At that time, she merely wiped her tears casually and tried to cover her emotions with laughter, but Mike felt something was off. Whenever she faced setbacks at school, Liza's reactions puzzled him. She seemed overly harsh on herself, often talking to her reflection in the mirror after exams, complaining about how stupid she was. Although she would say, "It's okay, I'll try harder tomorrow," he could see that behind those words lay unspoken pain and insecurity. These subtle behaviors, if not observed closely, would be difficult for others to notice. Now, looking back, Mike felt as if he had been enlightened, realizing that Liza's depression was not a fleeting emotion but a long-standing struggle buried deep within her heart. The more he thought about it, the more heartbroken he became, regretting that he had not noticed it before, that he had not actively cared for her, letting her know that he was always by her side. Mike fell asleep unknowingly while lost in thought. The next day, he woke up even earlier than his alarm, anxiously preparing to go out and find Liza. As he hurriedly got ready and opened the door to leave, he was surprised to find Liza already standing at his doorstep. "Why are you here so early?" Mike looked at her in astonishment, feeling a bit confused, but there was no emotion on Liza's face, as if she was hiding something. Mike tried to read something from her expression but found nothing. The two walked silently towards the bus stop, the atmosphere much heavier than usual. Mike thought about the words he had been wanting to say, and at that moment, he decided he had to tell Liza no matter what. "I have something to tell you," Mike gathered his courage, but was abruptly interrupted by Liza's loud voice. "Don't say it, I don't want to hear it right now." Mike's heart sank instantly, he felt hurt, unsure if Liza had already guessed what he wanted to say, but he suppressed his emotions and softly replied, "If you want to hear it later, just let me know. I'll be waiting for you anytime." Their conversation ended there, leaving a heavy silence between them. They boarded the bus, heading to their respective schools. After the university entrance exams, life seemed to have become much easier. The enormous burden that had weighed on his heart disappeared, and the atmosphere among classmates became more pleasant. But Liza was the exception. She still felt a stone weighing on her heart, praying every day, hoping to attend the same university as Mike. A month later, the day of the results arrived. Everyone was at home waiting for the scores to be released on their computers, and Mike and Liza were no exception. The moment the results were announced, Mike immediately checked his score: 703 points. He was extremely excited and quickly messaged Liza to share the good news. However, 5 minutes passed, then 10, and Liza still hadn't responded. Mike's heart tightened, and he grew anxious. Unable to hold back, he ran to Liza's house, knocked on the door, but no one answered. Looking down, Mike noticed that the front door was actually unlocked. He felt a surge of urgency and pushed the door open. In the living room, Liza was sitting there, staring blankly at the score column on the computer screen: 640 points. This was actually a very good score, but Liza knew she could have done better. Her heart was filled with disappointment and self-blame, seemingly unable to find any comfort in this score. Liza could not accept the reality that she and Mike would not be attending the same university. 640 points, although it placed her among the top 5 in her class, could not mask the gap and disappointment she felt inside. She knew this score was far from enough to fulfill the promise she had made with Mike. She felt that all her efforts had been in vain, and her future with Mike seemed to be drifting further apart. After returning to school, her classmates' attitudes towards her remained filled with hostility. Although her score had far surpassed most of her peers, those who had once mocked her did not cease their attacks. On the contrary, their sarcastic remarks became even more cutting. "You're not satisfied with such a good score? What do you want, exactly? Who doesn't know she used to be at the bottom of the class? In a grade of 200 in our school, she was ranked 150. Don't think you can flaunt these scores just because you got into a good school." These words were like sharp daggers, stabbing into Liza's heart time and again. She felt her defenses gradually crumbling, and the emotions she had suppressed for so long surged back to the surface. The blow of not being able to attend the same university, combined with the resurgence of her depression, left her feeling utterly helpless and despairing. She tried to ignore those voices, telling herself that these were just insignificant words from insignificant people, but those words took deep root in her heart, impossible to forget. Liza felt her world growing increasingly grey, and those voices became louder, like an echo that wouldn't stop. In Liza's world, the long accumulated pressure and pain finally found the most vulnerable point, completely bringing her down. The moment she checked her university scores. 640 points, a score she should have been proud of, but it was not enough for her and Mike to attend the same university. This unattainable shared future shattered her hopes entirely. Coupled with the long-term bullying and attacks from her classmates, her heart was crushed. She felt that no matter how hard she tried, she could not escape it all, could not prove herself, could not keep up with Mike's pace. This pressure pierced her like a sharp sword, ultimately defeating her. That day, Liza returned to the place where she had initially intended to end her life. She quietly sat on the railing, reminiscing about the times they had spent together. She took out her phone, scrolling through their photos, smiling, yet silent tears fell. She gently sent a message to Mike: "I'm sorry, I'm tired." Mike was at home at that time, thinking about how Liza hadn't contacted him all day. When he saw the message on his phone, a wave of intense panic washed over him. He immediately called Liza, but it was always unreachable. An unsettling feeling gripped his heart, and he rushed out, suddenly recalling the railing at school. That place held the most precarious memory in his heart, the place where he had once saved Liza. Back then, Liza, overwhelmed by her inner pain, sat on that railing, and Mike, frantic, rushed up to pull her down, holding her tightly. So he believed Liza must be at school. Mike ran fast, hoping to catch up. When he finally reached the familiar building, the scene before him was nightmarish and unacceptable. Liza lay quietly on the ground, surrounded by the silent night. Liza! Mike rushed over, kneeling beside her, desperately shaking her shoulders, his voice filled with urgency and despair. However, Liza did not respond. A faint smile remained on her face, as if she had been freed from long-standing pain, returning to a place that brought her peace. He sat beneath the railing, gently cradling the lifeless Liza, his mind replaying the scene as if she were still there, still able to be saved by him. But this time, he couldn't catch up, or rather, Liza hadn't given him the chance to. Mike refused to believe what lay before him, continuously calling her name, trying to wake her, yet she could no longer hear his voice. Tears blurred his vision. At that moment, Mike felt his world collapse with Liza's departure. All memories, promises, and futures were swallowed by this silent night. A few days later, Mike sat alone in the cafe where they had first met, facing the spot where Liza used to sit, his eyes dim and lifeless. On the table lay a photo of Liza, which he gently brushed over, tears flowing uncontrollably. He spoke softly to himself, as if conversing with her, "I still have things to tell you, can I say them now? If you don't answer, I'll take it as you agreeing." Mike smiled faintly, a bitter smile filled with endless pain. "Liza, I've liked you for a long time. Ever since we started playing games together, I would intentionally tease you just to get your attention. But it seemed you didn't understand my intentions and even grew to dislike me." He wiped the tears from his face, continuing with a bitter smile, "But actually, I just really like you. The first time I saw you, I persuaded Chooks not to come because I was afraid you would fall in love with him at first sight. Chooks is too handsome, I can't compete with him. But fortunately, we later lived in the same neighborhood, so even if you had difficulties, I could help you." Mike paused for a moment, tears once again blurring his vision, "But now, it seems you don't need me anymore. Yet, I still need you, Liza. What a lovely girl you are. I watched you fall from a place of brightness, and now, my world is left in darkness. My world has no light anymore, Liza." Mike's voice began to tremble, he could no longer suppress the pain within, finally breaking down in tears. "I really regret it. Why didn't I tell you my feelings sooner? Why didn't I notice your pain earlier? Liza, I'm sorry." Since Liza's departure, Mike had become much quieter. The once cheerful him gradually closed off his heart, always carrying an unshakable sorrow. He became more focused on his studies and rarely contacted his friends. Even when joking around, his smile no longer held the sincerity it once did. Night fell, and Liza's world was forever plunged into darkness. And Mike, standing in this darkness, could no longer reclaim the once bright girl in his heart.